Okay, so today we are reviewing this book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Now, I am aware that this book does not follow the same as these ones, but I didn't have a copy of the original covers. We're going to let that go. We're going to talk about this book. I have so much to say about this book because I literally finished it maybe half an hour ago, and I just want to get into talking about my thoughts and feelings of this book. So, if you have not seen any of my reviews before, I split them into two sections. The first section is a spoiler-free section. The second section is the spoiler section, where I can gush and rave and rant and all that stuff. I want to very quickly get into this spoiler-free section because there's so much I have to say in the spoiler section. So let's do this incredibly quickly by giving you 3 cons and 3 pros about this book in a spoiler-free way. My first con about this book is the majority of the first half of the book. Now, I end up giving this book 5 stars. It is a YA fantasy book. It is the final book in the Harry Potter series. This concludes everything, and I love this series. It is my second favourite series of all time. Despite the fact that I gave it 5 stars, I don't like the majority of the first half. My first con is that first half because we deal with a traveling, questing trope where the characters have no idea where they're going and no idea what they're doing, and I found that to be very off-putting. It is a good book, but I struggled the first time I read this book because of that reason. There's no real purpose at the beginning. Well, there is a purpose, but we're aimlessly wandering around, and I don't like that. I don't feel that that's a spoiler, really, because we could be aimlessly wandering around for anything. If you've never read Harry Potter, you have no idea what we're aimlessly wandering around for, and even if you've read the first 5 Harry Potter books, you still don't know what we're aimlessly wandering around for because it's not set up till the end of the 6th book, which is not being shown right now, but it's this one right at the end, Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. My second con for this book is the lack of a redemption arc. I don't know how I'm going to put this without spoiling it. I should say spoiling it. There is a subset of people, a subgroup, I guess you could say, within this book that I would have loved to have seen them go through a redemption arc, and they don't. And that really annoyed me. Admittedly, the first time, this is a reread. All of the Harry Potter books are rereads for me, so it's not the first time I'm reading it at all. But that also allows me the chance to be really over analytical and really get lost into all the little finer details of this book, which you will see when we get to the spoiler section. The first time I read this book, I didn't care about what I'm saying now, but this time I really wished that that group had a redemption arc, and they didn't. My third con for this book is... Alright, I'm just going to say it. Death. There are deaths that occur in this book, and I don't feel that that should be seen as a spoiler because there are a lot of books where deaths occur, and I'm not going to say who dies, I'm not going to say how they die or why they die, but there are deaths that occur in this book, and some deaths just hit so much harder than others. Now, there are reasons for that to be a pro, because it receives an emotional response from the reader, and that can make it a really good thing, and otherwise, if it didn't happen, the book could come across as a bit more stale, I guess, if no one dies, if there's no consequence. But there are some people who die in this book that, to me, I don't like. I wish they could have survived, and I don't quite understand why these specific ones that died had to die. I haven't done a lot of research into why J.K. Rowling made the choices that she made, but yeah, that's my second con for this book. My third con for this book is the fact that something that usually happens, and that in fact happens in all of the first 6 books, does not happen this time, and is replaced by the questing trope. Not only do I not like the questing trope, but the reason why I'm adding this as the third con is because I don't like what the questing trope is replacing. It makes sense. On a logical level, I get why this thing that I love doesn't happen. I absolutely understand why it has to be the way that it is, but it's still something that I don't like so much. But now let's talk about the things I do like. What are my 3 pros? Let's get to them. My first pro for this book is the climax. Okay, now, for those of you who have not seen any of my Harry Potter reviews, sometimes I refer to the films, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I refer to the films in a minimalistic way, and sometimes I refer to the films in a very big way. The ultimate climax in this book and the ultimate climax in the film, I need you to know, if you've not read the book or if you have not seen the film, if you've only experienced one source of this material, they are different. First of all, they are different in the way that in this book there is a very big conversation that takes place before the ultimate thing comes to pass. That's in the book. In the film, there isn't a conversation that takes place. The ultimate thing just happens. Okay, so I just got a little bit lost there in the wording because I can't think of the word where you have the ultimate thing of the book that happens, and I said it moments ago, but the ultimate conflict, shall we say, to use that word instead. Yeah, it's very, very different. The film version is, I'm going to say, a bit lame, I have to say, because the book version is so good, and that is why it is my first pro. There is a conversation that happens between 2 rivals at the end that is so good. Oh my god. It is so good. I was so emotional the whole time I was reading this conversation. So, the ultimate conflict, the ultimate conclusion, the last thing that happens, whatever that word is that I can't think of, is so well done. That is my first pro of this book. Usually in my pro section, I give one of my pros away to the fact that it's a really easy writing style. I'm not going to do that this time. It is still a really easy writing style, but I just have too much to talk about. So my second pro for this book is the seeds that are planted throughout this series come to fruition in the final book. It is so good. Nothing, absolutely nothing that occurs in any of these books is a waste of space, because every single thing that we learn in book 1 all the way through to book 6 has a point, and that point is revealed in book 7. And I didn't know this the first time I read it, but the second time, because I read these books so closely together and stopped watching the films after the 3rd film, I was able to put all these connections together and go, oh yeah, that makes sense, because we learned that in book 1 and here it is in book 7. We learned this in book 2 and there it is in book 7. We understood what this is in book 3 and there it is in book 7. And oh my god, everything happens for a reason in the whole series, and we know this in this book because it comes up in one way or another, making the ending so completely satisfying. The third pro of this book is the amount of information that we receive in the book, especially moments before, I don't know how to say this in a spoiler-free way. There is a moment where our protagonist is in the headmaster's office and something has just gone down, and after it happened, the protagonist receives something which gives him a ton of information that we didn't know coming into this, that answers a ton of questions, but without being told it, we are being shown it. This is something that I've tried to discuss with other books along the way. There is a big difference between showing something and telling something. I did not know exactly what this meant when I was writing books. I've written books myself. None of them have actually been published, but they've been placed onto amateur websites such as Fanfic and Fiction Press and stuff like that, and I love those websites. Happy to shout them out all day long. But I didn't really quite understand the difference between showing and telling. The difference is you can have an author literally writing, this is what happened. and that is telling. Or you can have the author have a character tell another character, this is how this goes down, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Or you can show it happening. Rather than saying this is A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you can say, okay, now we are dealing with A, and you see A happen, and that's how you learn about it. You're showing it rather than telling it. And that is what happens. We get a ton of information that we don't know in a chapter that is a massive chapter that from start to end has got to be my favorite chapter of the entire series. It's chapter 23, it goes for about 30 pages, and it's called The Prince's Tale. Oh my god, I could just read this chapter over and over and over again. There is so much in this chapter, and every single sentence is a golden nugget of information. It's so good. Alright, I'm going to leave that there. If you're not joining me for the spoiler section, I completely understand. Go ahead, read this book, finish off the series, and then come join me for the spoiler section because I have so much to say. I have so much to gush about and so much to rant about. I have both. So let's go and do that. I gave it 5 stars. This is the final book in the Harry Potter series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. It is a YA fantasy. I gave it 5 stars. Now over to the spoiler section. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Warning, warning, warning. If you're not joining me, I'll see you next time. But for those of you who are, let's go right now. Okay, spoiler time. Let's get right into how I feel about this book. Let me start off by saying the films tried to do and I say films because Warner Brothers split this book up into 2 films, and I appreciate that because they wanted to give the fans the best thing that they could. I appreciate what the films did, but still, the films did not... they did not do the book justice. They tried. I think they did really well. I think Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows film Part 2 did really well to try and show as much as they could from the book. And I do praise whoever the director is. I didn't do my research, but whoever the director is, I praise them. Compared to Mike Newell, who was the director for Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, who I definitely do not praise. Check out my review of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire for that one, because no, so many issues. But there are a ton of things that occur in the second half of this book that are left out of the film. Let's just work our way through it, shall we, as much as I can, and start off with the beginning of this book where Harry is at home with the Dursleys. I do so appreciate that every single book in this series starts with Harry with the Dursleys. I love how that continues with every single book. It doesn't in the films. For example, with Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire being the first film where this doesn't happen, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire starts off with the Muggle caretaker and what happens there. And the first time we see Harry, he's at the Burrow. That doesn't happen in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. He starts off at home, at the Dursleys' house at number 4 Privet Drive. One of the biggest reasons why we have to be at the Dursleys in this book, I love that we are regardless, is because Harry is about to become of age, and once he becomes of age, the protective spells that Dumbledore put around number 4 Privet Drive to stop Harry from being attacked from Voldemort, they are not going to work anymore because Dumbledore only had them last until Harry turns of age. Now, in the Wizarding world, which I kind of found it really strange the first time I read it, and I still do. In the Wizarding world, you become of age at the age of 17, and to me that just, I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me. I guess, you know, this is a different world. It's J.K. Rowling's world, and she can say what she wants, but I just found that really weird. Now, in Australia, you come of age at the age of 18, and I believe in other areas overseas, you come of age anywhere up to about 21. So even here in Australia, where it's younger than other countries, it's still not 17, but anyway, it is what it is. So Harry becomes of age, and we have, as we know, we have those members of the Aura, why not? The members of the Order come and pick him up, and they take the Polyjuice Potion, and we have about 6 of them, or 6 or 7 of them, turn into Harry to confuse the Death Eaters, but it's to no avail because the Death Eaters find out anyway. I do want to quickly backtrack though and talk about the Dursleys, because the Dursleys have been told, J.K. Rowling is so good at showing and not telling that we don't know what's happening with the Dursleys until Harry is talking to Uncle Vernon, who is again trying to change his mind because he keeps flipping back and forth as to whether or not he's going to do what the Order is telling him to do, which you gotta give the guy credit. He's a muggle. He doesn't understand all this. But anyway, we have a great conversation between Uncle Vernon and Harry, where we find out through their conversation, again, show, not tell, through their conversation that Vernon, Petunia, and Dudley are being taken away by 2 members of the Aura who are going to look after them to ensure that no harm comes of them, because at any time Voldemort could take any of them and kind of hold them hostage and torture them for information about Harry. Sorry, I'm just going to pause here because it just sounds really familiar, and the reason it sounds familiar is because at the end of the 6th book, this is exactly the words that Harry gives to Ginny as a reason why they can't date anymore, because Voldemort's going to try and use her to get to Harry. So yeah, anyone who knows Harry, they're in danger. Molly, you in danger, girl. Dursleys, you in danger. But anyway, so eventually they do leave. Here's the thing. The film, you're not going to hear me say this often, but the film got something right with a creative liberty that they took. In the film, Harry and Aunt Petunia have a moment together where it seems like she's being as nice as Petunia can be. Because let's not go too far and say she's the nicest woman in the world. She's absolutely not. But as nice as she can be to Harry. In the book, when the Dursleys do leave, Petunia she doesn't really say much to him, but J.K. Rowling intimates that she's struggling over whether or not, or seemingly struggling over whether or not to say something to Harry when she leaves, decides not to though. And that's a bit disheartening. Vernon and Harry, when they have their conversation about Vernon saying, I'm not going to go with this ruddy order and da-da-da-da, it's the best conversation that I've seen them have, other than in book 1, which takes me all the way back to the very first book. First half of the, well, not even the first half, maybe the first quarter of the first book. Again, seeds being planted, where Harry and Uncle Vernon have a discussion about Uncle Vernon taking Harry to platform 9 3/4 so he can catch the Hogwarts Express, and it's a great conversation that they end up having, which doesn't happen for the rest of the series until this book. They have a really good conversation, and Harry is able to stand his ground. He is, and I really appreciated that. But otherwise, Vernon doesn't really say much else, so I can leave him. I want to talk about Dudley, though. In the film, Harry and Dudley shake hands, and I appreciate that. I don't remember what Dudley says because I haven't watched the film and I don't plan on watching it. But I have watched it before. I didn't watch it this time around, is what I mean. But they shake hands and I don't remember what is said. In the book, talk about a redemption arc. Dudley Dursley, I want to hug you so much. Oh my god. So this bullying brute of a cousin whose one of his favourite pastimes is to beat up Harry or to just make Harry's life a living hell, stands up to his parents who believe him to be the best thing that has ever happened in this world, and Dudley can never do any wrong. To quote Aunt Petunia, at one stage she says, "Oh, Dudley, my popkins, he would never hurt a fly. He's such a nice boy." They always think the best of him, and so Dudley never really has a reason to stand up to his parents for anything because they always listen to whatever he says, except for the diet, but I'll put that aside. When Dudley says, "But what's going to happen to Harry?" Thank you, Dudley. Thank you, J.K. Rowling. I loved the redemption arc. I don't think that it was a plot convenience or that it was just, I don't know, thrown in and seems really out of whack at all. I really loved it. Dudley is acting like a cousin to Harry, saying, we are all being rescued, but what about him? Where's he gonna go? And he is genuinely worried or even terrified of what's going to happen to Harry. I loved this. Dudley, you have been redeemed, and from what J.K. Rowling has gone on to say, and apparently we get other information in other ways as well from J.K. Rowling. Apparently, Dudley does go and see Harry every so often after the Wizarding War has concluded. So I love that. They get to still hang out together and be nice to each other. Yay, yay for Dudley. It just makes me so proud. But we need to move on. So we get to the Order of the Phoenix headquarters, which is now located at the Burrow. Yay. Because number 12, Grimmauld Place, the only good thing about this place is that it was it was eventually owned by Harry's would-be father, Sirius Black. I think that's the only good thing about number 12, Grimmauld Place. It's not a fun place to be in at all. In the Burrow, we at least get to have fun while we're there. Harry is so determined to go after these Horcruxes, though, that he is so easily distracted by a lot of different things, and when he and Ron get a moment alone, Ron actually says to him, be careful of Mum, because she's been talking to me and Hermione and trying to get the information out of us about what we're going to do. And thank goodness Ron says that, because moments later, Mrs. Weasley says, Harry, what's going on? Kind of thing. There's more to the story than that. And she does it under the pretense of Harry needing to identify a sock, which was different, but okay. But yeah, Harry does stand his ground and says rather, nicely to her, I'm sorry, Mrs. Weasley, but Dumbledore said that I can't tell anyone except for Ron and Hermione. I think maybe it might have been an idea for Harry to tell people what was going on, and of course by the end of the book, when the trio get back to Hogwarts, finally Ron and Hermione say, look, I'm sure you can say certain things to them, we could do with their help. But anyway, then we have Bill and Fleur's marriage. I love that Fleur was reintroduced back into the series after Goblet of Fire. I love that we get to see her get married to Bill. I love that everyone shows up. I love that Harry is made to look like a member of the Weasley family and gets to talk to people not as Harry Potter. Because here's the thing. With Harry being everything that he is, going from the boy who lives to Triwizard Champion to Triwizard Winner to the Chosen One and all of these titles that he has, everyone acts differently around Harry because of the title that he has. So I really appreciated that at the wedding, Harry got to be someone else and to be treated normally. Aunt Muriel is a laugh and a half. I think I burst into laughter so many times when she was talking because, oh my gosh, she's a batty old lady, but it provides humour. I'll at least put it that way. But one of the scenes that I really appreciated was Harry sitting alone with Victor Crumb. And it took me a moment to remember that Harry isn't seen as Harry because Victor's talking to him like he's not Harry, and yeah, it just took me a moment to remember, oh yeah, that's right, he's not Harry, he doesn't look like Harry right now. And they got to have a talk, and they were talking about Xenophilius Lovegood's necklace and how it is the Deathly Hallows, and I really appreciated that conversation. But let's fast forward. Obviously the Death Eaters do come in. I think the film did this reasonably well, and Harry, Ron and Hermione end up apparating to wherever it is that they go, and eventually they end up, after getting attacked by Death Eaters at the diner, anyway, they eventually end up at number 12 Grimmauld Place, where they're trying to work out how to go about doing whatever it is they're going to do. It is here that we find out about a little bit about what's going on at Hogwarts, not everything. But Snape has been made headmaster, which only makes sense in a world where Voldemort has support from the majority of the wizarding world and the majority of the Ministry of Magic, because otherwise, who in their right mind to this point is going to make Severus Snape headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry when you have a perfect person to be head mistress, Minerva McGonagall? It just doesn't make sense. But anyway, it makes sense as far as shock and outrage, and also makes sense because of the allegiance that Snape has to Voldemort, more to come. But yeah, so we find out a little bit about that, and then eventually we set out, we find out also that the Ministry are most of the ministry are very outwardly supporting Voldemort, which really got to me in a very big way. How their allegiance changed like that on a dime. that really upset me. The confidence that I had in the ministry in general, not the ministry towards Harry, because we know that there was a lot of injustice that the ministry serves towards Harry, but the ministry in general, that confidence that I had completely evaporated when I found out that they very quickly, most of them, of their own accord, supported Voldemort. Not everyone did, but most of them did. That was really annoying. Now, I quickly want to talk about Creature, because Creature did receive a redemption arc in this book, and gosh, I appreciated that, because I came out of Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, my reread of that book, saying I don't like Creature, and I'm not going to talk about him because I don't like him. But finally, someone in the name of Hermione, of course, my favorite character, convinces Harry, no, treat him well, okay? It's not his fault. And yeah, they find a way to work with Creature, and Creature works with them, and it all works out really well. And when Harry ends up giving Creature the locket from Salazar Slytherin, the Regulus Black's locket, I should say, sorry. That was just a really beautiful moment, and Creature comes back with Mundungus Fletcher, and I really appreciated that as well. So yeah, I just had to mention that. Okay, now I'm going to jump very far ahead, because from the moment that they retrieve the real locket from Dolores Umbridge, I don't like a lot of what comes up next, because this is where Harry, Ron, and Hermione are forced to go on this questing trope where they have no idea where they're going or what they're doing, not even in a house. They are camping here, there, everywhere, and yonder. I get why they have to do it, but emotionally I don't like it, and so therefore I just don't want to talk about it much, other than to say that I don't like it. I really don't like it. I get it. Logically, and here's where the issue is with me, and I've said this in many reviews before, I have the logical side of me and the emotional side of me. Logically, I get why it has to be this way. Emotionally, I don't like it because I found it really boring. So I'm going to skip over a ton of the first half, where Harry, I'm just going to skip over all of it till Harry, Ron, and Hermione get back to Hogsmeade, and the Cutterwall, or whatever it's called, alarm goes off, and eventually they are rescued by Aberforth, and we get to hear the story about Dumbledore and Ariana, which I really appreciated getting to hear his side. Then Harry goes back to Hogwarts, and this is where I want to resume this conversation. Harry gets back into Hogwarts and sees most of Dumbledore's army, well, all of Dumbledore's army that are still at Hogwarts, and others that are there in the room, and it is a beautiful moment to see that despite everything they're being put through by these Carrows, they are so valiant in defending Harry and wanting to do everything they can for Harry and for Dumbledore's army. It is so great to see. And then, of course, they leave the Room of Requirement, and Harry bumps into McGonagall, and all that stuff goes down, and eventually the Wizarding War begins, and all of that stuff. Now, again, I'm going to skip right ahead. I'm going to skip to the Shrieking Shack with Harry, Ron, and Hermione seeing what's going on with Snape and Voldemort. Voldemort ends up killing Snape via Nagini. Now, this is something that didn't make sense to me when I read this upon the reread, and I did some research, and I now understand why it went down that way. One thing that I questioned was, why didn't Voldemort use Avada Kedavra on Snape? Voldemort's killed that many people. He wants to have the allegiance of the Elder Wand. Why doesn't he just kill Snape? It doesn't make sense to me that he's setting Nagini on Snape. But I did some research, and I ended up realizing that it wouldn't work. For Voldemort's theory to occur, and in the way that Voldemort thinks it works for him to have control of the Elder Wand, he can't kill Snape. It has, because the spell would rebound back off Snape and hit him, as it does in the end. But yeah, he has to have it done another way, and that's why Nagini has to be the one to kill him. Then, of course, Snape gives Harry the memories that Harry puts into the Pensieve and gets to see them. This chapter, as I said earlier, this chapter, the Prince's Memories, or the Prince's Tale, in this version it's about 30 pages. Every single line, in that chapter is a nugget of gold. And this video is going to run out of time, so I'm going to come back with a part 2 because I really want to discuss that chapter in as much depth as I can, and then I want to discuss the final battle and the final conclusion in as much depth as I can. So I did think I would be able to end it with one part, but I just don't think it will do the final book in the series justice. So we're going to end this here and come back with part 2. Thank you very much for watching. Hold on, be strong. Part 2 will be with you very soon. In the meantime, letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Thursday, and Sunday with reviews in between, and I'll see you again very soon with part 2. Mwah. Happy reading. Bye, guys. Bye.